Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about a topic that I think is really important and is an area that I find most guitar players can use a little bit of work with, and that is having a good knowledge of your note names all throughout the fingerboard. So being able to identify notes on any fret and any string. And this is an area that a lot of guitar players struggle with. And guitar is a really interesting instrument because it's notorious for being one of the hardest instruments to read music on and know your note names on. And the reason why that is because guitar is one of the only instruments where you can play one note in like 3 to 4 different spots on the neck, and it looks completely different every time you do it. And I teach a few different instruments. I teach piano as well. And that's one big thing that I've noticed when you're teaching note names to people. When you teach a C note on the piano, every time you play a C, it's going to look like a C. But to explain to somebody on the guitar that this is an E note, you could play the same E right here. You could play it here. You could play it here. You could even do it here. So there's 5 different spots right there just playing the same note, which obviously makes things a lot more complicated because when you're trying to find notes and when you're reading music on the guitar, not only do you have to determine what the note is, but you also have to figure out what position on the neck you want to play the note in, depending on what the other notes are that follow it. So when it comes to knowing your notes on the guitar, it can seem like a pretty overwhelming sort of thing to try to dive into, and it can be tricky to know exactly where to start. And I have a little exercise that I developed that I do with a lot of my students, and I figured it would be cool to just make a video running through it and giving you something that you can practice along with at home. And this is going to be a whole series of videos that I will do, which will eventually cover the entire fretboard. But every video is going to cover 2 different spots on the neck. And in this case, we're going to be covering the open strings and the first frets of every string. And just a heads up, some of this stuff might be very easy for you, and if it is, I would suggest just skipping through until you get to a part that is a little bit more challenging. So all of the exercises that I'm going to be running through, I'll have timestamps for them linked in the comments and the description. So if you start doing an exercise and it's too easy, just check the timestamps and click through and just go to, the next part and see if it gets more complicated. But hopefully as we go through this, it should get more and more complicated, and at a certain point it should be pretty challenging for most people watching it. So to start out, we're going to cover the 6 open strings, and this is the portion of the video that might be really easy for some people, but for others it might be really beneficial if you're trying to get more comfortable knowing all of the notes of these open strings. So to quickly review, going from bottom to top, our open strings are E, A, D, G, B, and E again. So the bottom and top strings are both E's. Now when I say bottom, I'm referring to the pitch. I'm not referring to the location. So that's a common misconception with the guitar. A lot of people think this is the bottom string because it's the closest to the ground. But whenever you say bottom or top in musical terms, it's always referring to the pitch. So this is the bottom or the low E string, and then this is the high E or the top string. Now some people use phrases to memorize the order of these open strings. The one that I usually teach people is every apple does go bad eventually. So E, A, D, G, B, E. Every apple does go bad eventually. Another one that a lot of people use is Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. Some people tend to remember that one better because it's a little weirder than the apple one. So whichever one works for you, feel free to go with that. Or you can come up with one of your own, whatever's the easiest for you. Okay, so the way these exercises are going to work is we're going to have a timer, and we're going to start out at 10 seconds, then we're going to work our way down to 7 seconds, and then 5 seconds, and then 3 seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name a string, and you're going to have 10 seconds to find the string. So like I said, this might be really easy for a lot of people, so feel free to skip through this. But I'm going to say the name of the string, and then you're going to have 10 seconds to find it. Once you find it, just play it, and then keep your pick on that string, and then after the 10 seconds, you're going to hear me play the note, and then you can check and see if you got it correct. All right, so here we go. I'm going to say the name of the string, then you're going to have your 10-second countdown to find it, and then I'm going to play the string, and then I'm going to go right into the next one, and we'll do 10 of these. All right, number 1, let's do the D string. Okay. All right, B. A, low E, G, A, high E, B, low E, and last one, G. All right, so like I said, that might have been really easy for some, but maybe for some others, it was really good practice for identifying these open strings. So now let's do that again. We'll do another round of 10, but now we're going to do them for 7-second increments instead of 10. So we'll gradually keep getting quicker with them. Okay, 7 seconds starting now. Let's start with a D, B, A, G, low E, B, high E, A, D, and last one, B. All right, now we're going to go a little faster at 5 seconds each. So let's get ready for that. Starting out, we're going to do B, A, low E, G, D, high E, A, B, low E, and last one, B. Okay, now for our final part of the open string section, we're going to do 3 seconds per note. So it's going to feel a lot quicker now than what we started at, but hopefully from running through these as much as we have, now you're able to identify these notes and open strings a lot quicker. So let's put that to the test now with 3 seconds per note. So here we go. Starting out with A, B, D, high E, A, G, low E, B, high E, and the last one, B. Okay, like I said, that may have been easy for some people. Usually when it comes to knowing note names on the guitar, most people have somewhat of an understanding of the open strings to start out with, but for anybody who was unclear as to what the open strings were and wasn't able to identify them in a quick fashion, hopefully running through this will really help with that, and I would suggest doing this as often as you can. You know, just sit down and just drill these, and before you know it, you'll be looking at all of these open strings, and you know, just right off the top of your head, you'll know what note each of these strings are. So now that we've covered our open strings, we're going to move on to the first frets of every string. Now this is where it starts to get a little bit trickier and can be really beneficial for people who are looking to expand their knowledge of their note names kind of in this general area, the lower position of the neck. So now we're going to do the same thing that we just did, but we're going to switch it over to the first frets. So first we need to go over what the notes are on the first fret of every string. Now one of the things that's great about going through the first frets now is it teaches you about sharp and flat notes, and it also teaches you the two different spots in the musical alphabet where we have no sharp or flat in between the notes. So the first fret on the bottom string, again the low E string, if we play the first fret, that's going to be F. So in the musical alphabet there's no sharp or flat between E and F. Now for our A string, the first fret will be either A sharp or B flat. So now when we go through these exercises, I'm going to start saying sharp or flat notes, which is another reason why it gets trickier as we start doing fretted notes. Now for the D string, the first fret will either be D sharp or E flat. For the G string, the first fret will either be G sharp or A flat. Now for the B string, the first fret is going to be C. So that's the other spot in the musical alphabet where there's no sharp or flat in between the two notes, in between B and C and in between E and F. And again, on the first string, we have open E. The first fret of that string will also be F. So high F, low F, right? Just like we did with the open strings. Okay, so we will start out with 10 seconds per note and eventually work our way down to the 3 seconds. Okay, starting out, let's do D sharp, C, B flat, A flat, high F, A sharp, C, low F, high F, and last one, E flat. Okay, so with that one, it may have been a little bit trickier for you, might have required a little bit more thinking behind each note, especially when we're dealing with the sharp and flat notes, which is, again, one of the reasons why going through the first fret now is so beneficial, because it really helps you get comfortable differentiating between sharp and flat notes. Okay, now we're going to move on to 7 seconds per note, starting out with C, E flat, high F, A sharp, A flat, E flat, C, low F, G sharp, and last one, C. Okay, now 5 seconds per note. We're going to start out with B flat, C, high F, A sharp, G sharp, A flat, that was a trick one, same note, D sharp, low F, B flat, and last one, E flat. Okay, now for our final exercise of the video, we're going to do 3 seconds per note, so it should get a little bit trickier now, but hopefully after drilling, those first couple of exercises, hopefully we're a little more comfortable identifying these notes now. Okay, starting out, we're going to do C, A sharp, high F, low F, E flat, G sharp, B flat, C, D sharp, And last one, A flat. Alright, so a lot of good stuff to be covered on these first frets. Like I said, differentiating between sharp and flat notes, and also getting comfortable identifying the two spots in the musical alphabet where there's no sharp or flat in between the two notes, which happens between E and F and B and C. So people trying to get more comfortable knowing what the musical alphabet is, this is also a great starting point for that as well, because it shows you that very clearly with these open strings and first frets, and also gets you comfortable differentiating between sharp and flat notes and how they actually are the same thing, but you know, can have two different note names depending on the context. Alright, so that is our exercise for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was enjoyable and informative, and hopefully you come away from this video with a little bit of a better understanding of your open strings as well as your note names on the first frets. And I would recommend going back to these and doing these as often as possible until you really get to a point where you feel like you know all of these note names inside and out. And the nice thing about pairing the open string and the first fret together is we don't get any repeated notes, as far as like none of the notes on the first fret are going to be notes that also happen on the open strings. So you get a really great combination of different notes. And as we continue through this series, I'm going to be doing everything 2 frets at a time. So in the next episode, I'm going to be covering the 2nd fret and the 3rd fret, and we'll keep working our way up until we get to the 12th fret, which is the octave of the open string. And hopefully by the end of this series, you'll have a really good understanding of your note names throughout the neck, and we can talk about further ways of expanding and getting more and more comfortable knowing the notes all throughout the fretboard. So that is our lesson for today. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you at the next video. Take care.